discussion now, or if you're all ready to make a motion on this matter?
I'd like to move the resolution.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And we can discuss it, finish the discussion. Hearing none, I'm going to open up for public comment. Citizens wishing to speak to us about this matter, if you fill out a yellow card. Have a sense there's going to be a lot of you, so if you line up, you'd save our time. And I will be enforcing the 3-minute rule, so I appreciate that. So, Mr. Goldman, you're recognized.
Thank you. I brought a PowerPoint presentation.
Could you identify yourself, please?
I'm Steve Goldman, and I live at 2009 Venetian Way. Instead of talking too specifically about which is the best way to move the traffic around Denning and Webster, I'd like to talk about the big picture. And so you all recognize the big picture here. The white area is Winter Park. Winter Park is surrounded by some major transportation arteries. Next slide. That's I-4. That is 436. That is Highway 50. And then, I'll say next. And finally, that is 1792. Now, we all know that Winter Park has a unique character. And one of the things that really defines that unique character is Winter Park chain of lakes and Park Avenue and the surrounding residential areas. Go ahead, next slide here. The blue, if you can see the blue there, I've done a kind of an amateurish job of trying to outline that area around the chain of lakes and those beautiful residential areas that we're also fond of, and that gives Winter Park its particular character. We also have some east-west arteries. Go ahead, next one. Next slide. If you want to go from the east to the west or the west to the east, I-4, 1792 over to 436, there's really only two ways to do it. One is you get off on Maitland Boulevard and you go through Horatio and Howell Branch Road. And next slide. And the other is you go down Fairbanks, which cuts through that area that we're also concerned with. Now, next slide. If there's another exit, that's Lee Road, and that stops abruptly at 1792. At that point, you have to either go north or south. So the traffic then is diverted at that point to these other arteries, and you could make your way through the capillaries right now, but there's a lot of things that discourage you from doing that. Next slide. The proposed, you can just barely see it, what is being proposed is to continue Lee Road, punching it through over to Webster. And how exactly that's done is kind of doesn't matter, but once you, once you reach Webster, you got two choices. You can go south down Denning, or you can somehow make your way across Winter Park. Go ahead, next slide. What I'm concerned with, and I think a lot of people are concerned with, is this possibility. Going down Webster, cutting over to Palmer, and then getting through Winter Park. And that will affect some of the most prime area in Winter Park. There's a lot of people around here that I think will be affected by this. So, go ahead, next slide. Okay, let's just zoom in on that area. One more slide. In addition, we have commuter rail coming through and a commuter rail station in Winter Park. Next slide. We have this development, redevelopment area, which I think is a good thing to do, which will also add more intense pressure for more people coming to Winter Park. And one more. And then we have the proposed baseball stadium, minor league baseball stadium, which will bring thousands of people from out of town into Winter Park. A lot of the same people that you see when you go to Daytona Beach. So each one of these proposals individually has its own merit, but taken in toto, they have the ability to permanently change the character of Winter Park. And I think that's something we all need to be very concerned with, because we all want things to progress and things to get better. But if we lose that character, we're all going to be impacted.
Thank you, Mr. Wellman.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we cannot tolerate applause during our conversations together. We can't hear the next speaker. We'll be here all night. If if you want to applaud or boo each one, you don't want to do that, please. Thank you. And please fill out a yellow card as we go forward.
Joe Terranova, 151 North Virginia Avenue. This is a project that has been considered for a long time, at least 12 years, and it's time to take action on it. And the reason it's time to take action on it is because it's a simple project. It doesn't change traffic in any way. It doesn't add more traffic. It doesn't subtract traffic. All it does is redirect traffic from Webster or from Lee Road to a dog leg, which is not 1792. That's all it does. It doesn't send traffic up to Palmer. It doesn't send traffic down to Morris Boulevard. It doesn't send traffic anywhere. It just redirects the flow of traffic, which is trying to now cross east and west and is bumping into traffic. It's going north and south. That's the only thing this does. Now, the problem that we have every time we talk about traffic is because it's so complex and there's so many different issues, we say, no, we can't talk about this unless we address the whole issue of traffic in Winter Park. We're never going to do that. If we do that, we'll never solve anything. This is a very simple thing. It ought to be approved on its own. It's not going to increase traffic. It's not going to decrease traffic. And it's not going to send traffic someplace where it's not going now. There have been people that have said that no, we shouldn't do this. It's going to relieve traffic on 1792, and I don't want to do that. Well, I happen to be one that uses that route when I go over to I-4. That's the way I have to go over there. And if you think by not doing anything with this particular intersection, you're going to solve a problem, you're not, because then people will start cutting through the neighborhood because they have to get from wherever they are to where they want. And most of them are outside of Winter Park. They're just going through here because that's the only way they can get from point A to point B. So I think you ought to go ahead and approve this as a standalone project. It's a good project. It ought to be done. It's going to relieve traffic. Don't forget when I-4 starts to be renovated, you're going to have a lot of people. Some of them use the commuter rail, but many of them never get out of their cars. They'll go over to 1792 and it's just going to get worse. And say, well, we shouldn't do anything. That's not the right solution. This is an easy project. It can be done, and we should do it.
Mary Dane with 650 Canton Avenue. Can you shine my light back on the slide, please? I happen to live on Canton Avenue, and I also use that intersection quite a bit. My concern is everyone that travels down Lee Road and make a right on 1792, they are not necessarily going to the Whole Foods store. They are not necessarily going downtown Winter Park from that. You have people that's coming from the north that's going through Winter Park. And if they're going to the village and you're talking about removing the light from Webster and 1792.
I think it was just a left-hand turn.
Just a left-hand turn.
I think that's what was said, yeah.
Yes.
The light is still here.
Okay. And then you're coming out here. Is there going to be a light there? And if you're coming from the village, you know there's an exit from the village right in here. There's one right here at Copper.
So let's pause, since you've asked the question. If you pause the time, you've asked a specific question.
Right.
I think we have an answer. Go ahead.
We are proposing to have a light at the intersection of the Extension and Webster. And there's further discussion that needs to take place with the village regarding either realigning an entrance for them or how their easternmost entrance continues to function.
Okay, because those are my concerns, because you have a, you know, it looks like a clear cut here, but it is impacting more than just what you're showing here. And if you notice on Dennis, when you come out on Webster, then you have a light there at Dennis and Webster. Okay, on Dennis and Canton, you have apartments, I believe it's 120 apartments going in there. you figure couples are gonna have 2 cars. So you've got another 240 cars that's gonna come out on Canton. Now, you've got a lot of traffic. You've got the senior apartments that's there. And dumping the traffic, alleviating the traffic from 1792 and dumping it onto Webster and Dennings, I think you're creating a problem for the residents and the neighborhood. And I'm not going to say you didn't think it completely through, but I see lots of problems there. And it might look like an easy fixing it here, but who are you fixing it for, and what problems are you creating for other residents? So I think you need to take that under consideration.
Hello, Randall Slocum, 1162 North New York Avenue, Winter Park. I'd first like to compliment Mr. Goldman for his presentation. I think he really has touched on the main issues that are relevant today. First of all, I don't know of any information that was shared with us regarding the existing vehicle count on Lee Road that's diverted in through Winter Park on Webster. And in reality, the 2 issues of either lengthening Lee Road and extending it to make it a plus intersection versus ending there is completely, or should be completely irrelevant of the stacking distance between Lee Road and Webster now. You can easily just eliminate the left turn onto Webster, irrespective of extending Lee Road at all. We have a 4-lane boulevard into Winter Park. It's called Morse. That should be the introduction, almost midway between Lee Road and Fairbanks, and it's underutilized. There are no residential homes on that street. There are residential homes all over Webster, residential homes on Canton, and it doesn't make sense to make the route of traffic easier to become a train, connected vehicles down Webster, down Park Avenue, New York, Old England, Georgia, and all impacting Palmer. Palmer is a joke now. And if this movement is put through, it's the ease of getting there is even going to be better. What's the point? Are we supposed to create another bisecting road through Winter Park? Aloma already divides the community enough. And as was said already, we have, most of the people aren't even going to our community. We don't need to make it easier for them to get from 436 or east of 436 to I-4 by bisecting our town yet again. I think this issue should be looked at more closely, should be considered different alternatives. And the first thing, if DOT says they have a problem with the left turn onto Webster, fine, eliminate it. It'll have people go down to Morse if they're going to downtown, or they can figure out another way. Maybe more people actually go up to Hot Ranch Road, which happens to be an appropriate divider because it's actually between Winter Park and Maitland, not through Winter Park. Thank you.
Jeffrey Blydenberg, 204 Genius. I too would like to thank Mr. Goldman. It was a real pleasure to see a real map covering the entire area of Winter Park and the impact that the decisions you all are making is going to have. I also concur with Randall regarding how we look at alignment A and B. It may, if you could put this up for a moment, please. It may seem counterintuitive, but if we want to keep people on Webster, then alignment B works. If we want to get people off of Webster and have them on Denning, we should do alignment A, not the other way around. On a bigger picture, and I don't know, maybe they've been done, but to Mr. Goldman's map, what we really need in order to make the decisions here are traffic counts. What happens at Lee Road, what happens at Webster, what happens at Canton, Morse, Fairbanks, and Orange. We don't know the percentages. If we do, and we're making the decision, and that this is the right decision on that, that's great. But I don't think we've had those maps done. We've had traffic studies done at the intersection to understand, to make the proposals. So my recommendation, and what I would urge you to look at, actually is to take the time, because we don't need to make that decision tonight. We don't have to make it, in a month. The developer said he's going to go ahead no matter what, and really look at how this Lee Road extension should be done, because it does impact Webster. It's a major impact on Webster. If you don't want to do that, again, get rid of the left turn on Lee and make it go through to A and make the A alignment, because that'll put you on Denning, and then that alleviates that concern of Webster. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Commissioner Lurie has a question.
I apologize, Troy, did the traffic engineer weigh in on alignment B?
With our traffic?
Did our traffic engineer weigh in on alignment B? And
Yes, he
there
did.
seems to be a lot of talk about additional traffic coming to Webster, which I don't, doesn't naturally occur. What was the opinion of the traffic engineer?
His opinion was that alignment B was the best alignment. And he
With
provided-
minimal
Yeah,
traffic.
it solves moving the traffic off of 1792 between the two intersections. It solves moving that east-west traffic down to where it's going now, which is on Webster, and minimizes the potential for traffic to travel north on Benning and try to impact the neighborhoods off of North Park Avenue.
Okay. Thank you, Troy.
Randall?
My name is Mary Randall. Excuse me, I live at 1000 South Kentucky Avenue, just off of Denning. And I see many problems with the alignment B option. And one of them that has not been mentioned so far tonight is that there was talk of allowing traffic to only turn to the left when you came from Webster to Denning. They were saying traffic would only turn right, which means that traffic would not be equally dispersed both ways on Denning. Well, I agree. I mean, I understand why the people don't want it to come up north Denning from there, because of all the other intersections that it encounters and brings you into other residential areas along North Denning. But there are residential areas all along South Denning. I happen to live in one of them, and that's just south of Fairbanks. There are residential areas from Fairbanks almost to Webster. It's not quite to Webster, although if you count the senior citizen, I guess it is almost quite to Webster. There are residential areas, small residential areas, single-family homes, duplexes, all along Denning when you head south. You head south, you're also heading for the intersection of Orange Avenue and Minnesota. There's a 5-way intersection, or 6-way, or I don't know how many ways you want to count it, but there are several roads that intersect at Orange Avenue and Denning and Minnesota. So that is just dumping more traffic into another congested area. So the right and left turns at Denning would be only reasonable, because if you're only turning right on Denning, then you're creating a negative impact on all the residentials south, which happens to be part of West Winter Park. Not enough time, there's not enough meeting that we had at the Civic Center did not, number one, the format was not good, and you heard that from hundreds of people that night, or almost 100 up there, and I think there were about 100 people there. It was not a good format. It wasn't good for people to be able to be heard and ask questions. People told you that all night long, and we needed more meetings to hear from the public. And the next thing you know, boom, here we are discussing it at the commission meeting. I personally resent that, and I think a lot of people do. There has not been adequate time or the right design for the meetings to get public input. And third, I disagree with Mr. Terranova, because the new route at Denning does not turn left as you've designed it. It turns right, which impacts the rest of Winter Park greatly.
Thank you,
It's
Ms.
not
Randall.
just a simple, it's not just a simple turn.
Thank you. Point of clarification. She was discussing a turn only, right turn only at Webster and Denning. I don't think.
We're not making any
That's not being
changes to
proposed.
Webster and
So
Denning.
your information was
The
erroneous.
no left turn was if alignment A, if it went straight through to Denning, there was no left turn.
With alignment B, Ms. Randall, you'll still be able to make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn onto Denning off of
Well,
Webster.
that wasn't initially what I understood.
Just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Sure.
My name is Lurleen Fletcher, and I live at 799, excuse me, I live at 811 English Court.
Would you move? Thank you. New address.
Oh, sorry. My complaint is about the neighborhood. I live right off of Denny. I live right behind Kent. When that traffic starts floating from off of Webster, it's gonna float right down Denny's, down through the neighborhood that's sitting over there, road, streets. And I don't approve of any of the alignment that y'all have that coming either way off of Leroy. Leroy traffic should stay on Leroy because most of them people's going to Maitland, Altamont, Sanford, and whatever else will drop stop off there where they live at. They don't live in the neighborhood. And if Mr. Tamanova had that traffic coming in through his drive, his front of his house on Virginia, he would probably be saying the same thing. So if either one of y'all, if y'all had that traffic coming through y'all neighborhood, you'll be blocking the streets off. And I don't think it's fair for traffic to come off from 1792 to try to go to Whole Foods place because a lot of people be trying to make it home. When the traffic get conjunction at 1792, what you think you're gonna do when it get on either Dennings, whichever direction you're gonna go? It's gonna back up everywhere because traffic is coming from off of I-4 trying to keep it being backed up there. So y'all should listen and consider what the neighborhood and residents said instead of what the development are saying, because each time someone come here to develop something, they always looking for a way for them to be out. They don't look away for the community overall to have a way out. You never listen, and always one with the head down right, and I hope they understand everything that the community in the neighborhood are saying. We don't want that traffic coming through that way. Leave it on 1792, on 1792, and let those folks go home the way they want to go. Because if they want to come down Park Avenue, they'll get down Park Avenue. So that's what you all are trying to do, trying to close us out on the west side for the traffic can have somewhere to come.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it. Thank you too.
My name is Marilyn Miller. I live at 1631 Diana Drive. I don't know how this gentleman can say it won't impact our neighborhood. Denning becomes Sunnyside. Sunnyside is a very, very narrow street. If there's a lawn company, you have to wait until a car goes by, until another car can go around. It will make a tremendous impact on our neighborhood. I have a very personal feeling about this because I have been burglarized twice. I live on Diana Drive, which is parallel to Sunnyside. I said to the police officer at the second time I was burglarized, he said it's because the accessibility to 1792. So now you're bringing 1792 and all that traffic into our neighborhood, our community. It's not necessary. We don't have to have a supermarket row on 1792. Do you realize how many supermarkets there's going to be? Why do we need this? Let's keep our community the way it should be. It should be small and accessible, but not the way you all are doing it. I know it's going to bring in a lot of tax money to the city, but we can find other ways to do that.
My name is Daniel Sale of 1144 Park Green Place. I'm president of the Park Green Homeowners Association, which is a quarter-mile away from the intersection of Lee Road and 1792, and it's a homeowners association of 48 homes. First of all, I'd like to say we're very, very respectful of the concerns of our neighbors, and we can understand their concerns. That said, what we really think this is really about is not so much moving traffic from Lee Road east through Winter Park. We think it's about alleviating traffic on 1792. And I think it's difficult to anticipate. It's just because we haven't experienced it yet, but I think it's very difficult to anticipate the incredible flow of traffic that's going to be on 1792, no matter what happens, whether or not anything changes on the road, whether or not anything's built on the road. And they're working on I-4 for the next 4 years. There are going to be hordes of cars on 1792 going in both directions trying to avoid I-4. And if they're clogged up on 1792, they will seek other alternatives, and that's what's going to move traffic east into Winter Park. If 1792 is flowing reasonably, people will stay on it. If it's not, they won't. And the other thing is that if I understand it correctly, no matter what decision is made here today, within the next 5 or 6 years, in all probability, this thing is going to get built. Whether or not it's paid by the developer now, which is, if it's going to be built, plus, or paid by the taxpayer later on, which is money that could otherwise be spent, is the question.
Thank you.
Rosalie Levy, 850 Juanita Rail. One of the wisest comments that I heard today was the gentleman who got up and indicated no left turn on Webster, just direct that traffic north and south on 1792 so that it goes onto the main streets that are already there. I want to point out that if the traffic comes straight to Denning, we have a real problem. The traffic that wants to go north and to get onto 1792 further north to Maitland will come down Denning, which becomes Sunnyside. It dead ends into Magnolia. The Winter Park parents and children go to Park Maitland School. And across the street from that is the Enzion Theater. It's a very long light, and you put more traffic there, there is no way anyone is going to get through. Plus, the danger of children crossing that road who live right there in that neighborhood and walk, you will have a real problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification too. The resolution here is just for alignment B, so when we talk about the PD&E alignment in alignment A, that's not part of the resolution that's going forward. So we're not recommending that that go to the state. That's not the motion on the table to move people directly to Denning from Lee Road. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Linda Walker, Chappelle, 794 Comstock Avenue. There, even though you say alignment A is not being talked about tonight, I live in West Winter Park, and I know things that you don't talk about find a way of taking place in my immediate community. If traffic isn't a problem, my question becomes this. They moved Glen Ridge. You have General Reese Road, and around the corner, you have Winter Park Road. Why is it that the traffic is cut off in the midst of Winter Park Road when if you let the traffic flow, it can go on around to General Reese Road? But the people didn't want the traffic in their community. When I listen to Troy talk about the traffic from Lee Road, he wants to move it to downtown. Alert, there's a community in the midst of that. People live in that community. Then he talked about the traffic going to North Park Avenue, diverting it to the White. Alert again, that's my community, don't want it. The reason I don't want it right now, within the last 3 to 4 years, it now takes me 2 to 4 minutes. If I go west, trying to get out onto Dennings Avenue, it takes me 2 to 4 minutes to get out on my street. Now you're talking about moving more traffic onto Dennings. I guess I'm just going to have to take the long way around. I won't be able to use that artery anymore because I won't be able to get in and out to get to my house. So I'm asking you to say no to any of the designs. Leave it like it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Donna Colano, 327 Beloit. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Slocum and to Mr. Goldman for their insightful presentation. I hope every one of you heard that, and I think there is a lot of support for it, and we need to look beyond one development.
Thank you. Others?
Pat McDonough, 2348 Summerfield Road. I think it's very clear that you're relying on old data. You are rushing this through. I just don't understand what the big rush is. Take the time, do a study, and I agree. I thank Mr. Goldman also and Mr. Slocum. They did a wonderful job. And I've had the opportunity in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks to speak to hundreds of Winter Park residents. And they all can't be here tonight, but I assure you that the people of Winter Park are not happy about this at all.
I'm Tonya Sale, I'm also 1144 Park Green Place, and I'm the board of the Park Green Homeowners Association. I have a question. Daniel brought it up briefly, but I don't think it came out loud clearly. Is the developer offering to pay for extension due?
We're not being asked to pay for it, so I'm assuming that he would pay for it.
So you're assuming that the developer would pay for it. So if it's not done now, if it is disapproved of now, and it is, I think it was proposed for 2018 originally, so if it's delayed and done later on, then it will be no developer money at that point. It would end up being taxpayer money.
If the DOT construction, it would be tax money.
So the money that would come from the developer now won't come later. He's not going to come around later on and say, oh, okay, I'll give you my money now. Is that correct? Okay, so that would be money lost if this decision wasn't made now to go ahead. Okay, just one. Thank you.
Harry Greenstein, 2348 Summerfield Road. Just hearing the word assumption raises the point that I want to make and was made previously. I think you want to rush to judgment. You're dealing and relying on studies from 2002 and 2004. You don't know the answers to existing vehicle counts, yet you're here saying that you're going to go after and approve B. And I think the rest of judgment should be stopped. I think you ought to revisit this, give the citizens a chance to speak a little more, and learn a little bit more about what you're deciding to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Other citizen comments? Floor still open. Going once? Twice? I'm closing public comment period.